Hi, this is Nicholas Bell with IONCINEMA, here to review The Reckoning, the latest film directed by Neil Marshall, which premiered at the 2020 Fantasia Film Festival, and RLJ Entertainment is releasing it February 5th, 2021. So Marshall, of course, is a notable genre director who came to prominence really back in 2005 with The Descent, and has since helmed several other things, including Doomsday and Centurion. And then he was a decade away from filmmaking and working in television. Multiple notable series such as some Game of Thrones episodes, and was scheduled for a comeback of sorts in 2019 with Hellboy, the reboot of that franchise, which was not a critical or box office success. So I am pleased to see him back with a new, more independent themed genre film that he co-wrote with Charlotte Kirk, and both of them also executive produced it. Kirk, of course, she's been in several things, British actress, had a bit role in Ocean's 8, for example, but is probably better known for some scandals with some Hollywood moguls who have been affected detrimentally through their interactions with her. So it's fascinating to see her on screen already having all this other stuff in the background. An interesting case in reception theory, if you will. But she does give quite a low-key, subtle performance from something, the packaging of which would suggest kind of a B-grade film, which it's not. It's very well-produced, well-shot, production design, everything about England 1665 during the bubonic plague and a scourge of witches in the countryside, of course. So Kirk, we open with two different things happening. One is a flashback that later comes to prominence about her childhood, and the other is, as the opening credits happen, she's burying her husband, who's hanged himself in the front yard, played by Joe Anderson. His name is Joseph. So Grace is left to fend for herself. We come to learn that Joseph killed himself because through some trickery he has been poisoned with the Black Plague, and rather than give it to his wife and infant daughter, he kills himself, leaves a suicide note. Meanwhile, the squire, played by Steve Waddington, who kind of owns all the land amongst the poor villagers, comes to collect rent, but that's not the only tender he'll accept. He makes it very clear. She rejects his advances, and there's a violent scuffle between them, and he runs back to town to suggest that there's something off about her. And within seconds, the townsfolk decry her as a witch, try to kill her, burn down her house, and she's locked in a dungeon and therefore tortured for basically the rest of the film to confess to her sins. A popular historical figure of the time, the Witchfinder, is hired, played by Steve Pertwee. He has a very interesting, probably the most interesting original element of the script is he has a sidekick, a protege named Lenora, who was burned at the stake as a witch but survived because of the rain, and now is under his tutelage, also helping him torture women. There's some violence, some of it arguably gratuitous, but none of this feels like an exploitation film. And again, it's surprisingly, he was very close to an actual moral, psychological drama with some horror elements, which I think will be surprising, maybe even disappointing to some people. Kirk, I think it gives a very well-moderated performance. She does appear to be a little bit too well-coiffed, I think, for a woman of this period. But that said, if you are a fan of Michael Reeves' Witchfinder General, starring Vincent Price from 1968, I think this is definitely worth checking out. I think Marshall is very intensely interested in medieval times, based on Centurion. I was also thinking of Paul Verhoeven's Flesh Plus Blood, his 1985 English language debut, which also kind of realistically tried to drill down into the kind of gross human elements of having to live during the plague. Waddington, who you'll recognize as a key character in Last of the Mohicans, is your general bad guy. Joe Anderson has kind of little to do, but Emma Holzer as Leonora, I think, was interesting. The score does a lot of heavy lifting, perhaps too much kind of generic heavy lifting by Christopher Drake. Otherwise, I would give The Reckoning 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.